All right, if everybody can move to their seats, we're going to get started here. Whoa. So this would be our first featured keynote, directing for television with Emmy Award-winning director Mary Lou Belli. Please give her a big welcome.
Hello? Oh, that'll work. And it's actually Belli. Belli, like a bell that you ring. That's me. It's also my mom. So I'm actually junior, if there such a thing existed, but I was little Lulu growing up, which is a little obnoxious, but that's how I was. But we both pronounce it the same way, unless I'm in my dad's hometown in Italy, and then I'm Maria Luisa Belli. So that's much prettier. So hi, everybody. I'm here to talk about the bastard child, TV. And I say that with a lot of sarcasm and humor because if this were 20 years ago, I would say go make your features. Go out and do this. We are in the golden, and the second golden age of television. The people who are writing, the people who are acting. I mean, Meryl Streep's nominated for an Emmy this year. Okay, so everyone is doing television. It's an arena that is financed, and the amount of jobs for people coming out of film schools or from the festival circuit is astounding and exponential. Julie, sit down. This is one of my, can I call you a mentee? A protege. A protege. I had a movie that I developed as a play, sold to Fox as a movie of the week. The day it was going to be greenlit, Citizen Ruth opened at Sundance. This is a long time ago. This is when Roe v. Wade was going to be there forever. And they said, oh, another abortion movie? We're not going to make that. And Julie has taken this and transformed it with the writer. And I hope that we're here next year because you'll be in post-production or screening it. It's a great thriller, guys. And there's a lot of women here, a lot of great men too, but I'm just going to say it's a story that needs to be told. So television. Television is, in my opinion, where it's at these days, and I say that as a woman who owns a multi-million-dollar house, has put both kids, one of them through what Fortune magazine called the most expensive undergraduate program in the country. This is after she turned down a $70,000 scholarship to where her grandmother got her undergraduate degree. But is now thriving, has her dream job, runs a very, very exclusive gallery in New York. And I'll tell a little anecdote about that. The first show, after she left Gagosian Gallery, which was her first dream job, she opened in this wonderful, wonderful small gallery in New York. And I said, honey, this exhibit is stunning. It's one of the best gallery exhibits I've ever seen. The New York Times, 2 months later, agreed with me and called it in the top 3 of all the. But I said, honey, it's so hard to find. To which she said, in only the way a Sarah Lawrence snob can be, she said, Mom, that's on purpose. We only want serious buyers coming to the gallery. Okay, darling. So I know about snobs, but I also know about where the money is. And the writing on television, I mean, in my category that I'm nominated, yes, I'm a three-peat for 3 years in a row as a television director. Thank you. In our comedy category this year is Guy Ritchie's The Gentleman. And if you haven't seen it, run. And of course, one of my friends, and I consider both Lucia and Paul from Hacks, as well as Jen, who I don't know as well, the writing on television, the acting on television is monumental. And it might seem like it's a circuitous route to making the movie you want to make, but so is making a short film. I want to talk about short films being the currency through which you can get that really high-paying job, or that entry into features, or that entry into television. My other mentee is sitting next to Julie, Meg Swartlow, who came to me after having writing awards, being mentored by one of an exec producer who I had done 3 TV series with, starting with Sister. And she sat in my solarium and she said, I think I want to direct. And I basically gave her the spiel that I give so many people. You're going to do this. Well, a lot of people I give this to kind of goes in one ear out the other. Yeah, I might try one of those things, Mary said. Meg was like she was baking a cake. And she did each step. Less than 9 months later, she was in the Ryan Murphy Half program. She has... I'm with a really good management team. They signed her. She's pitching to major film houses these days, and I'm just so proud of her. So Meg Swartlow, guys. So what I'm saying is, and someday I might convince her to do some TV. Trying. Short films as an entry, because I think, is that something, raise your hand if that's something you want to hear about. Because I could also talk, you don't want to hear about stars I work with. That's stupid. Although, a year and a half with Faye Dunaway, watch the documentary. It's called Faye. It's good. But most of you want to hear about shorts as being the currency. So I teach... My God, I think I've taught or done lectures or appearances or mentored people in every diversity program, or directors initiative programs, because some of them focus on women and people of color, or anyone who has been an outlier and they're trying to change that climate. But a lot of them... Sorry, white men are invited. We've had a lot of successful white men come through it and received work. But so it's Warner Brothers, Alliance of Women Directors. Thank you, Nikki. Places that are advocating for people and how do they get from step to step to step. So most of them, all of them have different criteria through their programs. Being in a Academy Award qualifying film fest is a criteria for some of them, but not all of them. Some of them you might have directed a couple episodes of TV, but they might limit it to 2 episodes and you're done, or 3 episodes and you're done, or no episodes. If you're already there on TV, we're not going to help you, or we're going to find someone else who needs the help more. So getting into a short like this. So if how many are filmmakers here? Okay, first of all, congratulations. It's a really, really exceptional short film festival. And I know this because I think I had already directed like 125 episodes of TV before I directed my first short. And then the second short I directed, I was introduced to Kimberly Browning, who a lot of you know, and she gave me notes. And just like Meg, it was a recipe to me, and I followed it. And 4 continents later, 19 film fests, for a film that was highly provocative, not in a sexual way. It was just, let me just say, it came out of my need to deal with 9/11, because my sister, who is alive, never been the same, but alive, called me on the morning, or actually her then girlfriend, now wife, called me and said, Nan's been hit. She probably needs about 12 stitches. She dove under a van, which if you go to the museum at Ground Zero, the picture of that van, and possibly, I don't remember if my sister's legs are sticking out. And she called and said, Nan's okay. I'll keep you informed. But of course, that was before the first tower collapsed. And then the second tower collapsed. And I thought my sister was probably going into the building where she worked after something happened, and nobody knew really what it was. Did an airplane hit this? And then I didn't hear from either of them for the longest 10 hours of my life. And my sister's fine. But I had to deal with not just that it happened, but my first film came out of a passion, which I think all of you have for storytelling. But for me, it had to do with the cycle of hate that I think began and has just grown exponentially, tragically in this country, fostered by some folks more than others. Enough said. But I wanted to say, let's talk about who we're vilifying. And therefore, a friend of mine who happened to have 3 Academy Awards wrote this amazing film for 2 actors who actually were both students at Pace University at the time. One of them was my kid. But I said, I really want you to meet Tim, my son's best friend, who named Jade, who was born in Morocco and is now on a national tour of a big Broadway show or something. I mean, he'll never stop working. Sadly, he plays terrorists most of the time. But it was about, something I was passionate and needed to find a way of exploring something I could control. Because in TV, I'm handed a script, hopefully on a show I like. But I am the director du jour, or sometimes on a show, the ones I've been nominated for, I'm also an exec producer on the show. And therefore, I'm not necessarily deciding what stories to tell, but if they need a little, tweaking, I'm listened to because I'm an executive producer and I'm trusted by the network. But being able to control that kind of material. So first of all, if this is going to be an entry level for you to make a lot of money and be a calling card for the feature you might want to make in the future, which it is, especially as a director and or writer. And not only if it's not, you're making enough money that you can finance it yourself. Not that I advise that. But being able to have a place where you can control the messaging, what you want to tell about. Meg wants to scare people. Julie wants to talk about pithy things like abortion rights. Yes. Um, thank you very much. I have 10 more minutes. Should I have a Q&A at the end? Should I have the last 5 minutes? Yeah. Okay. So give me a 5 and then I'll shut up. Let's talk about once you have the shorts, once they've played festivals, so I'm going to say, first of all, a good Excel sheet that has all the programs, and the programs keep growing. I had one-on-one meetings with 8 people from the group #StartWith8, which is across the board, it's not just in show business. It's about people of color unite, helping other people, and the Black Women's Collective. My friends Lisa and Laura Bunbury were in one of the first years. So they're not necessarily they're advocacy groups. They advocate for anyone. Don't think, oh, I'm not Black, I can't get into that group. Very often you can. But any group like Alliance of Women Directors who might be doing a program with NBC, or Women in Media, where I'm also on the board, might be doing the Camaraderie program, and its first film, opens and wins at Tribeca. Those sort of things are your currency with these programs. And thank you, the Directors Guild of America, and someone like me, who was one of the 80 or so people on the negotiating committee, you are now guaranteed an episode if you get into one of these programs. Yes, it took a long time. Yes, but and these programs are mandated You can't have a studio or a network and not do one of these programs because we're just trying to even the playing field. And I was one of those people who people came up to me, colleagues, I thought, and say, "Ugh, we had to hire a woman." Yeah, yeah, it's so offensive. Yes, thank you. Thank you. You're just shaking your head. It's disgusting. And this was a person who I thought was my friend. So things like that happen. But as a result, the pool of directors, and especially of women directors, has exponentially grown. And now, because we've been so successful in that field, the Directors Guild of America is concentrating on doing the same thing for feature films. So if that's where you want to be, more power to you, and we're going to help you too. So after you have these things, you apply to these programs, and basically, you're going to get rejected. You're going to get rejected, and every person I know who 5 minutes who applies and reapplies, and sometimes reapplies. I'm telling you, the people, I don't choose who I'm teaching in these programs, but I do get feedback from the people who are doing the choosing, and they say, "Well, she applied the first year." And we really liked it, but we didn't know that she was quite ready for the program, or this was missing. But then the second film that she did between the first time she applied and the second, oh my gosh, we saw that she wants to do this too, and this is her passion. So they're looking at the totality, and sometimes they're looking at it over multiple submissions. And just for the record, 5 times I got rejected from the AFI's directing workshop for women, never got in, and now I teach it or teach for them. Um, but what I'm saying is that um, the most important thing I want to tell you is you have to have the goods to say, I was in this film festival, people acknowledged it, but a lot of them have now video introductions that you do yourself. It's not about vomiting your resume. It's about let me seeing who you are. You know, um, if Meg, I want to see her pink hair. you know, I want to see your personality. And when I teach, like for which I do, like for places like Alliance of Women Directors or the DGA, elevator pitch programs. I cannot tell you how many times I have one-on-one meetings with directors, and like I'm walking them to their car because I don't like to go out for coffee, but I do like to go for a hike. And they'll, as I'm opening my door, they go, "Oh, and this," and I think they buried the lead. This is exactly what I would suggest they start a meeting with, and they almost didn't tell me this information. So pitch yourself, not your project necessarily, but pitch yourself, learn how to do it, practice it, and get feedback. It's really important. Okay, I'm going to take some questions for the last 3 minutes. Yes, in the back with the green. Hi.
So thank you for sharing all that. Oh, hi. Um, how did you actually break in and get
Yeah.
started as a director? I'm curious. You didn't get into the AFI, so
No, no,
how?
no, no. It was long before. I think when I was applying to AFI, I already had at least 80 episodes under my belt,
Okay.
and they still didn't take me. No, I was, and that might not be right. I'd have to look. Um, uh, I was, I came up as an actor, singer, dancer. I realized I hated performing and loved rehearsing. And I became a coach on a television show that my husband knew somebody on because I was the same height as a teenage girl who is now a network director herself. Her name is Megan Follows. Nobody's old enough to remember the original Anne of Green Gables done in Toronto, not Anne with an E, which I do think is brilliant. But Megan was the queen on the CW show Rain and then started directing that show as well. Um, and on shows where I was coaching, I shortlisted the shows. I had an agent sit next to me of the director who was directing and looked over and said, "What are you doing?" I said, "Well, I marked my script. I'm probably up to about somewhere between 75 and 100 shows that I have shortlisted." He goes, "Why?" And I said, "Because I'm practicing, because I hope to be in that chair someday." And soon after that, I was, and he was my agent for 19 years through 3 different agencies. and with one of the biggest packagers of TV at the time, which doesn't exist anymore, which is not a bad thing. Um, so that was my journey. And then when I decided I wanted to leave comedy and start blowing shit up and crashing cars or doing helicopter chases, it was like starting over. But I had mentors who allowed me to come and observe them on set, or would take a look when I shortlisted their shows. And I ended up writing a book called Directors Tell the Story with probably the most profound mentor I had, Bethany Rooney, who to this day is probably my closest friend. Okay, is that answers your question? Yeah, Julie. Oh, I buried the lead.
Yes, you buried the lead. Your book is something everybody who's interested in working in television should read. Directors Tell the Story. What edition are you working on now?
Today, to Focal Press in Great Britain, we handed in our third edition.
Congratulations.
And it has cutting edge information. When you do a new edition, it's 20%. Well, this is almost 45% new or additional information, so much so that we have moved 2 chapters to the website that only people can access who buy the third edition, because we have the cutting edge information on augmented reality and casting and post production of any book that will be out there.
Thank you. Everybody should know about it. My question, you direct multicam comedies and single cam dramas. What makes them different? Because I know they're very different beasts.
Yeah.
Can you talk about that, please?
Yeah. So multicam comedies is like directing a theater piece. You rehearse for 3 days, you bring the cameras in, you design for a 180-degree palette, and then you shoot it with kind of standard lighting. I have a DP who I've done single cam with, so he can augment things. But basically, it looks like it looks. It's basically we're recording a stage play, and it's got to be funny. With single cam, my world becomes 360 degrees. I have the access to a lot more equipment. We don't call them toys in the business. Equipment, from drones to, there was an action sequence that I ran 16 cameras on simultaneously. So, 5 of them were GoPros and 2 of them were not GoPros when we were finished. I got footage, so the palette's different. And I left sitcoms for almost 10 to 15 years because I really wanted to do a different kind of storytelling. And I wanted to do the kind of storytelling that I was doing in the theater. Because when I was choosing the plays I was directing, they always were dramatic and pithy and psychological and that sort of thing. So they're very different. If you said I could only direct one for the rest of my life, to be perfectly honest, I'd stay in the action world. It's just for me, the palettes. I'm painting with 1,000 colors as opposed to 200. So it's different. Yeah. Any other questions? Yeah.
We have time for one more question.
Yeah.
So I was curious when you were talking about you're looking at doing executive production and basically with the stories, giving advice for some of the films that you're working with so that the networks would be a little bit more happy. What are some examples of that typically will get a film ready for, or television shows ready for what the network would actually want? What are those refinements?
Well, first of all, you have to know who your buyer is and you have to know who the audience is. So you're adapting it to that. Even Meg and I talked about pitching on the way up in my car. And if you're pitching to Netflix, it's a different pitch than you would do for Stars and a way different pitch than you would do for CBS. And it might be basically the same German idea, but you got to know what the buyers want. So in that case, I'm looking at, I think I'm on my 7th show for BET or BET Plus over, I can't even remember what it started with. But I know their audience. Or if I don't know, I respectfully ask people who are more authentic storytellers in that field than I am. But I'm kind of a logic police. So for any show you get me on, if something doesn't make sense or doesn't feel real, or the dialogue's not, hitting really well, I'm gonna ask you to tweak it. Now, the person who created Miss Pat, on where I'm an exec producer, is a genius. I mean, 6 Tony Awards last year. He's just finishing as an actor, Freaky Friday, and he opens his next play at the Baltimore Center Stage, where he's premiering his next piece. When he was in the new school, he had his first play at the Public Theater and won an Obie. He's truly a genius and as kind and deep as he is nice and talented. Okay. Did I answer your question? Good. And I think we have one more if it's short. Yeah. That's a great question. I have an answer. And it's an answer I wouldn't have had 10 years ago. Find an IP and control it. Everybody knows an IP is an intellectual property. It might be a play. My first short came from a play I saw and went to the playwright literally before the audience had left the theater saying, I'd like to make this into a movie. The second, it might be a magazine article. And guys, don't think you have to pay a lot of money for this. I have 6 shopping agreements now, 3 for novels, multiple novels. I mean, one has 10 in the series, one has 4 in the series, one has 3, but it will be 10 when it's finished. And I don't think I paid more than $5. Or it might be a magazine article that you read from Forbes or Fortune. Go, oh my God, I think I see a germ of an idea. I literally got an idea from a freebie paper that was on the counter of the hotel that I was checking into. And I went, oh, middle school bullying. What's going on here? You know? So you can find IP, but if you control it, you may not get your dream as a first time out director. You might only be exec producing. And if you want to get it made, you might have to have a director. But if it's TV series, you get written into your deal that you're going to be directing one of the first 10. And that can be a deal breaker. Like my friend Chaz Pimenteri did with, I can't say friend. He had asked me to produce A Bronx Tale when it was a play. And I said, oh, Chaz, it's a one-man show. How am I going to fill the seats? You know, Robert De Niro thought, this is a movie. So it's about, you know, finding a property that you want to take all the way. Chaz wouldn't sell that idea until he was going to be cast in a smaller role, which really launched his major acting career, which has never stopped, and he still writes. Okay, I think that's all we have time for. Guys, best of luck to you, and reach out to people who you think can help you. Do it respectfully. Do it to show that you have initiative and passion. And if they ask you to do something, follow it like a recipe, because then they'll be impressed that you think that your advice had value. That's all. Bye-bye.
Thank you.